The Prime Minister has greeted MK Stalin for his birthday, but behind the veneer of political civility, a war has been brewing, and that war has been over India's language policy. Is this really a Hindi versus Tamil battle? Or is it, as opposition supporter Yogendra Yadav says, actually a battle of Bhasha versus English hegemony? I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we will be looking at the fault lines that have been wrenched open in the opposition alliance when it comes to languages and India's language policy. Nothing new has really happened except for the allegation by the Tamil Nadu government that the center is withholding grants all because the DMK has refused to go along with what it calls Hindi domination. The center has argued that the three language formula is really an old formula and not one about Hindi domination. But the language wars are old, familiar, and deeply political. Among the southern states has always been the allegation of Hindi domination. But let's be factual and clear. India does not have a single national language. India has official languages, but not one national language. And thinkers like Yogendra Yadav, who have called their opinion on this matter a friendly disagreement with MK Stalin, are arguing that this is confusing the forests for the trees, that the debate is not about Hindi versus Tamil. The debate is really about English versus the rest and all of the class biases that may accompany that fault line. To decode exactly what's going on between the DMK and the center and why Yogendra Yadav, otherwise a critic of the Modi government, finds this language battle formulation tired, old, cliched, and incorrect, I want to welcome now to the program Yogendra ji himself. Namaskar, Yogendra ji. Always good to see you. I've been reading your writings on this with some interest, and you have said the talk of Hindi dominance is a joke. You said that in your column for the print. In another column for the Indian Express, you spoke about how we need to be looking at English hegemony versus the bhashas of India, and the debate has quite gone into a different direction. You are, of course, with the opposition in terms of where your political support lies, and you've called this a friendly disagreement with MK Stalin. What do you think Mr. Stalin is getting wrong in how he is seeing this debate? In one of his comments to social media, he spoke about how Hindi had swallowed other Indian languages, and you said that was not on. You didn't agree with that. What do you think Stalin's getting wrong in this debate, Yogendraji?
Thanks, Barkha. I should really thank you for reading what I've written. Over the last 24 hours, one of my discovery has been that 176 words are too long for people to read. Because the tweet that you mentioned is actually exactly 176 words.
Gee.
And people don't even read that. The other thing, of course, which should not have surprised me is that in this country, public debate has now reached a level where people presume before they read what you say. They presume because you are a Hindi wala or whatever, you would do that. If Barkha Dutt
Mm,
has this position because she's a Brahmin, because she is this or whatever, so
mm,
there's really no thought about, and in a sense, I mean, this language has always been a very emotional issue. And understandably so. But in the last 10 years or so, our public discourse has been so debased that
mm,
even those who seek to oppose BJP follow the same template set by the BJP trolls, which
mm.
is attack. There's that, forget facts. Why do we need to look at this? You are this. So, for the last 24 hours, I've been told that I'm a Hindi chauvinist, that I'm a Hindi supremacist. I mean,
Mm.
most of my friends would be astonished to hear these things because all my life I've carried a crusade against these things. Just as you
Yeah.
rightly said, there is nothing called a national language in India. Hindi enjoys no such status. Hindi should not enjoy that status. That Hindi states are actually principally to be blamed for sabotaging the three language formula, which was a wonderful thing, the
Mhm.
formula itself. And I've actually gone on to say that this thing called Hindi Divas should be abolished. I've
Hmm.
consistently taken this position. So now I'm being told that I'm a Hindu supremacist. Anyway, to come back to the difference, to the friendly disagreement, the
Gee.
disagreement is with that tweet. not with the
Hmm.
overall position of Tamil Nadu government.
Yeah.
Because that tweet is actually not about Hindi opposing Hindi supremacy. It is not about opposing the imposition of Hindi on Tamil Nadu. It
Hmm.
actually says something. You probably have that tweet here. The tweet
Yeah.
simply says Hindi has gobbled up, Hindi has swallowed so many languages, etc. Now, I thought, and as I've said there, that I have disagreement with that part of it. But let me first of all begin by underlining the agreements. Number
Hmm.
one, Tamil Nadu has been at the receiving end of severe violation of federal principles, the manner in which the Tamil Nadu governor has gone about doing things. That simply, destroys every federal spirit. And I'm not saying it here. I had made a video saying why Tamil Nadu
Hmm.
governor must go.
Hmm.
Second agreement. So in that, I'm completely with them, including the kind of things that he has said today. The governor of Tamil Nadu has been reported today saying, people of Tamil Nadu are being denied of economic opportunities for lack of
Hmm.
implementing language policy. I think that's
Hmm.
nonsense. I don't think anything, if they were to start teaching Hindi, suddenly there would be economic opportunities which they don't get. So that's one. Number two, I completely agree. And in fact, my previous article was on that, to say that central government cannot withhold educational grants from the schools of a
Hmm.
state simply because you do not implement this particular aspect of the national education policy. That's number two. And number three, I completely agree. And that's a position I've taken over the years again and again, that whatever my position, whatever someone else's position, language policy has to be evolved consensually. You simply cannot impose a language on any state. So with these three fundamental agreements, and that's something I've written again and again, why we must be extremely sensitive in a country which is a multilingual country. We have to be extremely sensitive to the sensibilities of everyone, and particularly sensitive to those who do not speak the largest language. Hindi is not a majority language of the country, but it's the largest in terms of numbers because of the way it's counted, partly.
Hmm.
So we have to be very sensitive to the feelings of those who do not speak that language, who are, and there is among the Hindi speakers, and you would understand this, we live in the city of Delhi, we live in North India.
Hmm.
There is this sense that many Hindi walas have, that they are the owners of this country and everyone else is a tenant. Now, that's a thing that we have to oppose, we have to stand up against. So, with all these agreements, the reason
Hmm.
I said I'm disappointed with what Mr. Stalin had said was actually that particular tweet. A,
Hmm.
the chief minister of a state launching forth against a language is a bad idea. Tomorrow, if someone from Uttar Pradesh or Bihar does it against Tamil or Telugu, I would say exactly the same things. And I have said it's the same thing in the past.
Hmm.
Number two, Mr. Stalin's main argument seems to be that Hindi has swallowed so many languages.
Hmm.
Languages like Maithili. Maithili, incidentally, now has a formal recognition. But
Yes.
Bhojpuri, Awadhi, Bundelkhandi, and so on, that Hindi has swallowed up. I think there is a fundamental mistake in understanding what he says. I completely agree that these are not mere dialects; these are languages. I think loss of this linguistic diversity is something we should be worried about. But this is not something peculiar happening only to Hindi. This has happened all over the country. What we call modern standardized languages, Bengali, Hindi, Odia,
Hmm.
this standardization has happened by grouping a number of languages, which
Hmm.
today we have started calling dialects.
Hmm.
Bengali had so many versions of Bengali. Bengali was written in
Hmm.
three different scripts in the past. There are so many other Bengalis. But today, one of those Bengalis has become the Bengali, standardized Bengali. This has happened in every single language. As to single out Hindi as having done a historic destruction of a kind which is unprecedented, that's wrong. And number
Yeah.
three, to say that Hindi is the principal imperious language of this country, I honestly think it's a bit of a joke. I mean, look at this imperial power called Hindi. which Hindi speakers don't want to learn. It's a language that Hindi speakers feel embarrassed about, language that cannot get you jobs, a language which has seriously suffered in terms of its acceptance. So what kind of a language does Hindi have except the Rajbhasha Samiti, which itself is a bit of a joke in this country. So I mean,
Okay.
the real imperial power is of course English, but we'll talk about it.
No, I was just going to pick up exactly that last point that you made, that Hindi can no longer get you jobs. And I think the argument that you are making is that the real hegemony is that of English. Now, there are two ways to look at this. One is we are having this conversation in English, whether we like it or not. Uh, we are a colonized nation, and we unpack that colonization and the impact of that colonization in our own ways, and it's a complex process. Nations around the world are grappling with it. That said, there are others like Chandrabhan Prasad, the Dalit scholar, who actually said that English is the vehicle for economic and social mobility. And I remember he used to say back in the day that, I want to create statues that appeals to the goddess Finglish, because that's how my community is going to uplift itself. So my question to you is, what you call English hegemony, the truth is that English today is the language of economic mobility. It is the language that allows Indians to go outside of India and get economic opportunity. It is the language that allows them to get jobs even in cities. So should we be shunning that hegemony, or should we be saying more people should have access to that English education?
Barkha, the advantage of being on your show is that we can have a slightly nuanced conversation. Uh, the the point is not about shunning English. That would be a ridiculous thing. I mean, if you look at the back, I mean, you would find a lot of English books here.
Yes, yes.
I'm speaking to you in English, although I must underline the fact that I learned English alphabets in class 6 and have
Really?
done, yeah.
आप उससे
I
उससे did you study in a Hindi medium school before that?
Not before that, even after that. I learned English alphabets in class 6 in a Hindi medium school where Hindi was taught in a Punjabi medium. So, we Indians
Yeah,
are multilingual. We
yeah.
can handle that. And in fact, I did my BA also in Hindi medium. So, but that's a different thing altogether. But so the point is not that we should shun English. Yes, we have been colonized. And yes, the point therefore is not to say that because we were colonized, we can now undo everything. There are things
Hmm.
that are worth undoing. There are things that are not worth undoing.
Hmm.
English gives us certain advantages. English happens to be a language that today gives us a window to global things. If we were colonized by the Portuguese all over the country, then we may not have that kind of a window. We have a window. It would be silly to give up that window. Number two, because English offers a certain kind of elite opportunities, some of which we have not created. Half of the opportunities that are attributed to English have been created by us, which we can undo. But many we cannot undo. So,
Hmm.
yes, in order to take equal advantage of that opportunity, I would want English to be taught to every single child of India. What I do not want, certainly, is that some people study English and
Hmm.
some, in the name of socialism, are denied English and then taught something which cannot give them job. Give it to everyone.
Hmm.
What I have argued against are two or three things. Number one, English being the medium of instruction for a vast majority of Indians who do not speak English at home. Even today, English is the mother tongue of less than 1% people of this country. 99% people being taught through English medium is a pedagogic barbarity, nothing short of that. In Britain,
Hmm.
people now want to learn Mandarin because they now realize that Mandarin is a language of opportunity. But
Hmm.
you wouldn't find any British professor saying that we should teach English kids mathematics and geography in Mandarin medium.
Hmm.
That's one thing I have opposed. And second, I have always maintained that the the hegemony of English has
Hmm.
very seriously led to loss of creativity in this country, and therefore we need. So while we use English, we should not allow English to use us. It is important to retain creativity. And number three, we are a multilingual country, and that's a great boon. I've already spoken about advantages of being colonized by the English, but one of the most biggest disadvantage was that we happened to be colonized by one country, which was linguistically most deficient in the world. That island, I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't know how to, I mean, no European is so deficient as the English were. So that's a curse. We are a
Hmm.
multilingual country. And
Hmm.
retaining that multilingual cultural heritage is is adding strength to our civilization. And I think I said that once on your show. I would like to repeat it, that those who think that we can become modern only on the basis of English are fools. They do not understand modernity. Indian
Hmm.
modernity requires us to build on our, just like European modernity was built on the foundations of European civilization.
Hmm.
Indian modernity will have to be built on the foundations of Indian civilization, and our great strength in terms of multilinguality. And just one quick point,
Yeah.
anyone who, because Indians somehow believe that modern education, technology, etc., require English language. My question would be, how did Japan go about it? What did Korea do? Until recently, what did China do? I mean, if you look at Japan, Japan is an example of building modernity without using, they had access to European languages. They translated enormous bit of European literature. They are not, no Japanese is unfamiliar with what is happening in Europe or in the rest
Hmm.
of the world. But till 10 years ago, last time I visited Japan, Japanese professors could hardly speak English. So this Indian peculiar colonial obsession with English is something we need to put in perspective.
That is true, but there are also very few nations in the world like India, in terms of the sheer diversity, and I think that therefore the idea of English not necessarily as the language of the colonizers, but as the language that might link us. You hear this phrase again and again. What is our link language? Not what is our national language. What is a link language? Now, I think what I'm hearing you say is that given the class bias in access to good education, given the fact that in absolute numbers, such few Indians actually have access to English, till that remains the case, English cannot be considered a link language in this country.
Uh, Barkha, did this country live with a linked language for the last 3,000 years? Does the whole of Europe live with one linked language? We are as large as the whole of Europe in terms of population and probably more diverse than the whole of Europe put together. So I'm not sure we need a linked language for everything. This country has lived with multilinguality. People on this side of Maharashtra have known a bit of Kannada, and on that side of Karnataka have
Hmm.
known Marathi. The
Hmm.
same holds true of Odia and Bengal if you go to Midnapur. And the same holds for Hindi speaking states, Marathi, and all kinds of things. So we've lived with multilinguality. Yes, we occasionally need linked languages for different
Hmm.
purposes at different levels.
Hmm.
Somebody just brought out a data saying 90, how many? I'm sorry, I forget the percentage. Probably about 80% Indians never move out of their district in their life.
Hmm.
We live in that country, and we are teaching them something which, in case they want to go to Germany, it should help us. Yes, teach them that, but in case they want to. So all these things were very carefully deliberated upon. Unfortunately, our level of thinking has declined in the last 50, 70 years on this question. Radhakrishnan Committee goes
Hmm.
into considerable details of that, 1948-49. Kothari Commission goes into this. And the latest is 2005 report given by one of the finest, some of the finest linguists of this country have thought about this country. In 2005, they've come out with a report, position paper for NCRT on these questions. And everyone has basically suggests the following. At the primary stage, please start with the mother tongue. And mother tongue doesn't mean Hindi. It can mean Bhojpuri, it could mean Bundelkhandi, Chhattisgarhi, Bagri, Marwadi, whatever. As
Hmm.
close to the child's home language as possible. Introduce other languages initially, but don't make that medium. By middle school, you can transit to the standard language, which is your Bengali, Odia, Hindi, and these are
Hmm.
standard languages. Shift
Hmm.
to that. Give them English by all means, but do not force them to learn history or geography or mathematics through English. Because, Barkha, sitting in Delhi, we can forget the farce that is being played out in this country in the name of English language. I
Hmm.
can tell you, again, this is not a joke, that much of, because in rural India, all over the country, English medium schools are sprouting up. Obviously, the parents don't know any English. The child, therefore, does not begin with any English. And can I say most respectfully that most teachers also do not know any English? And this is
Yeah.
called English education, English medium education. So what kind of education would you have in that class? The teacher would walk to the classroom with an English, with a book, and you say, "Acha, ye question hai, likho iska answer. Akbar was a Mughal ruler, full stop." I mean, is
Hmm.
this education? This is
Hmm.
English medium education. You can't do that. That's what I'm opposing. That's what I'm saying. This doesn't
Uh,
work in.
but by the way, we looked up that figure. It's 87%. 87% of Indians never move out of their district in their lifetime,
So
according to
should we
the.
not take that into account while framing our language policy? You
So
know?
let's come to the language policy. What's unclear to me and you have pointed this out in your columns, nothing new has happened, the best I can understand. Nothing new has happened. The three language formula has been debated for as long as I've been a journalist. That's coming close to 30 years now. In fact, I think you say that the 2020 National Education Policy, the NEP, was a little softer than previous policies when it came to this three language formula. Why do you think MK Stalin might be up in arms at this moment? Is this linked to the larger anxieties around delimitation, federalism? What is going on here?
Yeah, I think the anxieties are different. As you rightly said, three language formula is not something new. It actually originates
Yeah.
with the Radhakrishnan Committee, 1948-49, then Kothari Commission. And
Hmm.
basically the three language formula is a product of a great institution which should be revived, which is all the chief ministers of this country sitting together to hammer out a consensus. It's a consensus that was worked out in 1968. Uh, Three language formula, I still think for a multilingual country like India is actually a very good formula. It's not as multilingual as we can be, should be. But to start with, three language is a decent approximation for a
Hmm.
multilingual country like us. The formulas initially said, mother tongue to begin with, Hindi in non-Hindi speaking states, and preferably a South Indian language in the Hindi speaking states, and English. This was the formula. In reality, the formula has been breached. It's never been observed in its spirit. And as I
Hmm.
said earlier, the states responsible for sabotaging that were the Hindi speaking states, because while they wanted Karnataka and Bengal to teach Hindi, they did not
Hmm.
want to learn Bengali or Kannada or Tamil. So
Hmm.
Hindi speaking states came up with a bypass, which is to say
Yeah.
Sanskrit padha do. अब संस्कृत
Hmm.
पढ़ाते नहीं है, संस्कृत लर्निंग इज अ जोक इन आवर स्कूल्स, कुछ भी तो नहीं होता है उसके अंदर. So they don't have to learn a new script, and they just have to mug up a few things which gets them very good marks. No one learns anything, so they bypassed that. This is how three language formula was destroyed. And
Yeah.
now what has happened is, on paper three language formula has continued. In reality, it has never been practiced in the spirit in which it should have been practiced. With
But
the
you know,
NEP
Yogendra,
2020, yeah.
yeah, no, I was just going to say that some of the issues you're raising are not to do with languages, but with how we are taught. So I was thinking that I learned Sanskrit till class 8, but I was made to जिसको कहते हैं रट्टा मार हम सब कुछ सीखा रट्टा मार के. So the mugging up approach to education makes you forget. Today I don't remember anything about Sanskrit. I studied it till class 8. So I think some of the issues you're raising are less to do with languages and more to do with how we teach them.
Barkha, in the case of Sanskrit teaching, there was something more to it.
Hmm.
I happened to learn Punjabi as my third language in my school because it was a Khalsa school, so they taught Punjabi. But I did pick up something. I can read Punjabi newspapers even today. I'm somewhat haltingly because I'm out
Yeah,
of practice, but it
yeah.
gave me a language. And if I was taught Kannada or Tamil, maybe I would have reached that level with some help. Sanskrit teaching was done not out of respect for Sanskrit, not out of any desire to get children to develop respect for our traditions, in which case we should have also done classical Kannada, classical Odia, and so on and so forth, which we did not. It was done purely as a mechanism to subvert the three language formula. बच्चों को कुछ नया नहीं सीखना पड़ेगा, बच गए. You don't need to learn a new script because it's Devanagari. और उसका और संस्कृत का थोड़ा सा उसमें दे दो इनपुट. So it was with bad faith that the entire thing. I'm not against Sanskrit learning. I think it's a great idea for children to learn. अगर वहां लैटिन पढ़ाते हैं, हमारे यहाँ संस्कृत क्यों नहीं पढ़ाएं? हम आप तमिल पढ़ाइए, these are Pali पढ़ाइए, Persian पढ़ाइए. These are classical languages. Our children should read it, and the children can pick up 4 languages. It's not a problem. But it was done in bad faith. That's my problem with the manner. So the whole point was to sabotage the three language formula. So a South Indian feels, all right, I'm being made to learn your language and you are not learning my language. What kind of a formula is it? What is national about it? The anxiety that Mr. Stalin has, as you rightly said. So to my mind, the anxiety is not because a new formula has come about. As a matter of fact, the new education policy has diluted the formula slightly. So on paper, the new education policy of 2020 is less Hindi wala than before, because all the new education policies in the past mentioned Hindi by name. This is the first time that we have a language policy that says 3 languages, any 3 languages, out of which 2 should be languages of Indic origins. In other words, you can do Tamil, Kannada, and English. That would be just fine, which was not fine in the earlier formula. Why is Mr. Stalin worried? I can understand his anxiety, because if all this happens in the context of a governor who's telling you every day to adopt Hindi, if this happens in the context of the central government telling you we would not release the education budget, which is their due, if you do not adopt this, and if all this happens in the context of informal operations to push Hindi, then you get anxiety. So there may be, I think that the anxiety is less about the NEP on paper. Anxiety is more about some mechanisms that are being pushed informally. And one of the anxieties, my friend T.M. Krishna yesterday, I was speaking to him after his gorgeous performance in Delhi. He said, look, we somehow suspect that this third language is a Trojan horse. Yes, technically we can introduce Kannada, technically we can introduce Malayalam, but in effect, Hindi will be pushed. This is what they fear. So the fear is not about the content of the policy, about the formal words, but something more. And I personally think the way to counter that would not be to say we are opposed to 3 language formula. It should be to say, all right, this is my version of 3 language formula. I'm going to teach this. Are you opposing it?
So I have a question. The BJP in particular has been criticized sometimes for attempted Hindi chauvinism. But what about when the reverse also happens? So take a state like Karnataka. We are seeing a very ferocious debate over, how many people have learned the local language. Can you speak Kannada or not? You're not welcome here if you don't speak Kannada. We have actually seen this, and this is a Congress governed state. So I'm offering it as an example. It harks back to the old days of Maharashtra, where if you didn't speak the language of the state, the Shiv Sena of that time, not the Shiv Sena of today, it's a very different politics, would say, "Bhai, aap to bahar wale hain." And there was an entire politics against those who came from outside the state for economic opportunity. So all I'm saying is that language chauvinism works both ways. And it's a tragedy, given that we have every opportunity to learn a minimum of 3 languages and as many as we want to in this great country of ours.
Yes and no. So I absolutely agree with the spirit of what you are saying. This country should be about learning multiple languages. So if you go to Bangalore, you're living in Bangalore for 20 years. Why should you not learn some Kannada? I mean, I've never understood it. And if Kannadigas of Bangalore or Karnataka feel uncomfortable about the fact that Bangalore is not a Kannadiga city in the sense in which Kolkata is a Bengali city, in the sense in which Chennai is a Tamil city, I understand, this needs to be addressed. I would not call, if they start defacing boards, I would be very annoyed.
That is happening.
But
That is happening. That is happening
so
in
that's
Tamil Nadu. It's happening
exactly.
in Karnataka.
In many places, it happened in Punjab at one point, if you remember. So
Yes.
it happens in different places.
Yes.
All this, but I think we need to find ways of addressing the identity anxieties. These are legitimate anxieties of people who live in Bangalore who feel that as if this is not a Kannadiga place at all. Uh,
Hmm.
this is why language is such a delicate question, and this is why we need to understand all the nuances of it. And this is why speaking on a show like yours is so helpful. We can get into some nuances of it. So
Yeah.
one simple solution, this is language chauvinism. No, we understand that, and then we draw lines and say, but you can't do this. That's what we
Absolutely.
need to do. That's what this country is built on.
Talking about languages and symbolism, very interesting. I thought it was interesting. The Prime Minister spoke at the Jahane Khusro Festival, a major Sufi festival organized by Muzaffar Ali. And speaking there, he spoke about Amir Khusro's love for Sanskrit, right? And invoked, the syncretic traditions of India. And this is happening in the middle of this raging battle between MK Stalin and the center. So I noticed it a little more than I may have on other occasions. What did you make of those comments?
I really hope the Prime Minister took something of the spirit of the Sufis, in whichever way, whatever. If he learns a tiny slice of the message of the Sufis, it's a great idea for this country. I'm sure he would have noticed not only the love of some Muslims for Sanskrit, he would have probably noticed some other things. It so happened that yesterday I was in TM Krishna's wonderful performance in concert in Delhi, where he was reciting the compositions of, coming from Kerala, one of our great social reformers, where he actually speaks of Nabi in his
Hmm,
invocation of God. So it works
hmm,
both ways, you know. It works, and this is what our culture has been like.
hmm.
Uh, and if our prime minister remembers one bit of it, I'm sure he will remember other bits as well. And yes, if that is the overall spirit, then this is the spirit on which this country is founded. We cannot overlook that spirit. That's the point I would wish to take. And this applies to religion, this applies to languages, this applies to cultures of all form. That multiplicity is our strength. We cannot build this country by just picking one language, one culture, one religion. That's not our spirit. And incidentally, the word bhasha versus English that I used
Yeah,
is not my word, is not my coinage. I should remember you are Anantamurthy who used it first. He said this is the real fault line of India, bhashas. And all the bhashas are there. In the beginning of the show, you referred to the possibility of a language war in this country. It will
yeah,
be such a tragedy if in that language war, Hindi stands on one place and other languages are raged against it. Uh, the war that this country should see, like this country should see a war on poverty. Similarly, this country should see, if at all there is a language war, Hindi and Tamil should stand together as languages that have all faced disadvantage. But in that war, you will not win that war by attacking English. You
yeah.
would win that war by strengthening Indian languages. Something we don't, we all talk about Indian languages. On political
Hmm.
stage, we all get up and say, and unfortunately, so much of socialist politics of some time was only about opposing English. What we really need to do is to build the capacity of our languages, all our languages, translate from one language to the other, create great children's literature in our languages. I cannot forget when we lost the language battle at our home. We educated our children in Hindi and Bengali, which are the two languages in my house. And we gave them Hindi books, Bengali stories, and so on. But the moment they got Harry Potter, we lost the battle. There was no equivalent. There was no equivalent to Harry Potter in Hindi. So you will take on English not by saying to a child, "Don't read Harry Potter." You have
Yeah.
to create something equally good in Hindi or in Bengali. That's what the language war should be about. And that if
Yeah.
we do, that would be true to the spirit of this country.
I want to end by actually talking about something we haven't spoken about, the connection between language and deracination. And this is something I think I've personally experienced growing up. You know, you said in your home you gave your children books and texts in Hindi and Bengali, and then they found Harry Potter. But when we were growing up as children, my parents, both of whom were in Punjabi, spoke to each other in Punjabi, but to me in English. Now we underestimate the impact of the spoken language. It doesn't matter what you study in school. Spoken language is where you learn language. And this sort of assault of globalization, right? It has, in a way, made us lose that tactile relationship with our root languages. In my case, I would say I dream in English. I speak Hindi and I speak haltingly in Punjabi. But if you ask me what is my identity, apart from obviously outside of being an Indian, I'm a Punjabi. But I can't speak my language.
Yeah, I think that these are the kind of questions we modern Indians should be asking. What you described quite candidly. All of us have faced this situation. I feel that I think about social science only in English,
Yeah.
on philosophic questions only in English.
Yes.
मगर अगर ये कहना हो कि अच्छा पजामे की पोचे की तुरपाई करनी है, I still don't know how to say that in English. I have to
Yeah.
say that in Hindi.
Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
of us have this bit of split which is happening.
Yeah.
We should not be awkward about the fact that we have been able to access English. Even if it was Mandarin, we should be proud of that.
Yeah.
But the disconnect that you mentioned, and that disconnect has affected all of us in different degrees and different forms. So the problem is not that you speak English so beautifully that you can access, but that Amrita Preetham doesn't live inside you.
That's right.
That's the thing.
That's right.
Uh, and and Amrita Preetham, when she invokes um Waris, when she invokes Bulle Shah, she
Yeah.
invokes Punjab Sikhs,
Yeah.
that is the deepest culture. I mean, this exists in every part of this country,
Yeah.
that we have been denied in the name of modernity. This is the most shallow modernity. No one has. I mean, can I say it as forcefully as I possibly can?
Please.
No
Yes.
one, no one has built modern civilization by looking over their shoulders, by looking at someone else. Imitation does not make you modern. It is only by looking ahead and building on your heritage, but the capacity to say only this far. Now I have to live in a world which you people have never experienced before. That makes us modern. I should not deny the fact that some of the Indian English writers today, who probably dream in English and write in English, are bringing out the finest of Indian sensibilities.
Mm.
Amitabh Ghosh happens to be one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So I would not say just the fact that they use English language constrains them. But Amitabh Ghosh is so great because you can read India in everything that he writes.
Mhm.
So it's being able to own up your civilizational cultural heritage without having to justify everything. Unfortunately, we are now caught in two kinds of reactions. One is
Mm.
to say Mera Bharat Mahan, every stupid thing that we inherited is great. Plastic surgery hoti thi 5,000 saal pehle. I mean, all this kind of nonsense.
Mm.
Uh, and on the other hand, this complete deracination and giving up on the strength of our culture. And I suspect both these reactions are connected to each other. It is precisely because of that deracination,
Yeah.
being cut off from culture and civilization, that we have now swung to this other thing of saying sab mahan, koi har din new festival is being invented, all kinds of stupidities are being done. Can we go back to Tagore? Can we go back to Gandhi? People
Yeah.
who were deeply proud of the civilization and culture, and who did not take 1 second, and I'll probably add Vivekanand to that list, and who would not take 1 second in discarding whatever was unacceptable in this culture and history. That is what we need to become. And this language debate should take us in that direction.
Absolutely. We'll close with that thought. I think that's a very perceptive conclusion, that the more deracinated you are, the more there is likely to be an eruption of narrow chauvinism. And if you remain deracinated, you don't literally have a language to counter that chauvinism in. And that is true for politics as well as language. Yogendra Yadav, such a pleasure. Thank you so much, and talk again soon. Namaskar, sir. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.